Hello everyone, this is Dr. Ilyas from the Department of Education, Hazara University, Mansehra. In this brief presentation, I would like to discuss case study research, especially this particular presentation will be restricted to the definition, the general definition of case study research and its general characteristics. Case study research, as many of you might know, is an important research in social sciences. And so, this particular presentation is aimed at sharing with you people um, the general definition of case study research and some of its most important characteristics. So let's begin with a definition of this particular type of research. Well, there are two important um, authors, two important writers who have defined case study research. There are Case study research actually has been defined in a variety of ways and by a variety of researchers and research scholars. And one very important research scholar is Basse, who has actually defined case study in the following words. Case study is study of singularity conducted in depth in natural settings. And then there is this other definition which is given by Gay, Mills, and Erasian, and they define case study research. So, case study research, according to them, is research which is basically a qualitative research approach to conducting research on a unit of study or bounded system. And so the bounded system, they have given examples of the bounded system such as a classroom or a school. So both of these definitions are quite useful in terms of understanding case study. And based on these two definitions and definition by other researchers and other writers on social science research, we can come up with certain characteristics of the case study research. And some of the main characteristics of case study research include: the first one is that the focus on singularity. So generally, case study researches are researches that study singular cases or singular units or individuals, and so the focus of case study research is on singularities. I will come up with some of the examples of case study that will show how case study researches are basically focused on singularity. The second characteristic of case study research is in-depth understanding, because mainly case study research has been identified or categorized in qualitative researches in the category of qualitative research, and generally qualitative research is focused on in-depth understanding rather than generalization. And so an important characteristic of case study research is in-depth understanding of particular cases or particular singularities. And so understanding that where the researcher goes into the depth of exploring phenomena. And so in-depth understanding is one more important characteristic of the case study research. The next characteristic of case study research is that case study researches are often conducted in natural settings. That actually means there is rarely any manipulation of variables, and so the variables or the phenomena that the researcher is interested in exploring are explored in a naturally occurring settings. And so the researchers do not make any changes to the settings. They study, they explore, and they try to understand the phenomena or the situations or events in their natural settings as they are. The next thing is um, the next characteristic of case study research is that case study researches are focused on the contextual rather than specific variables or contextual understanding of the whole phenomena as a whole rather than focusing on specific variables or the manipulation of variables that generally happens in experimental or generally in quantitative researches. And the last one in this list of the important characteristics of case study is exploration of bounded systems. So the case studies are generally bounded in a particular, in certain boundaries. So every case that is actually studied, every case that is explored are bounded in time and space, and so there are geographical boundaries or there are conceptual boundaries around which case studies revolve. So again, exploration not on a broader level but on a specific level in particular boundaries, and again the focus here is on in-depth understanding or in-depth exploration and analysis rather than exploring things on a broader level. So these are the general characteristics of case study researches, and here are some general examples of case studies. Again, I must reiterate that this particular presentation is focused on actually discussing the general concept of case study rather than going into the specifics of particular research, particular case studies, because there are different types of case studies, and we will go into that detail in some future presentation. But the examples given here are actually examples to elaborate on the particular characteristics related to the general case study. And so the first one could be an example of a study of the perceptions of teachers regarding a particular study program at a university. So, for example, in a university, there are different programs, study programs that are offered. And a particular researcher is interested, for one reason or another reason, is interested in exploring a particular study program in depth. For example, in terms of the contents the course contents that are offered in that program, or in terms of the teaching methodologies used in that particular program, or in terms of the aims and goals of that particular program. So if the focus is entirely on that particular program, entirely in terms of understanding and exploring, this will be a typical example of a general case study. Similarly, another example could be the study of an event, such as a voting process in a particular city during an election. So let's say an election is taking place in a country, and someone is actually, a researcher is interested in order to understand or in order to explore how the voting process takes place in a particular city. So if the focus is on a particular city and also on a particular event, which is actually the process of voting in that particular city, this will again be an example or a general example of a case study. Similarly, studying the impact of a particular organizational decisions. As we know that many organizations, including educational organizations, take different decisions. And so let's say a particular decision is being taken in a particular school or a college or a university related to suppose change in syllabus or change in teaching methodologies or some other similar type of thing. And so that decision can become a particular case that the researcher might explore um, in a kind of bounded way. And so this will again be an example of a case study. And the last example in this list, which actually is not the last because there are numerous ways and there are numerous examples of case studies. And so this one is exploring the causes of success or failure of a particular school leader. In this case, the case study is particularly a particular leader. So because the case could be an event, the case could be a particular institution, the case could be a particular process, the case could be a particular person in an important place, in an important role, such as a school leader. So um, some researchers might be interested in exploring the causes of success or failures of particular school leaders, and so they can take that as a case. And so, um, as you can say in summary, we can summarize this brief presentation uh, by actually going back to the very definition of the case study, which is case study is the study of singularity conducted in depth in natural settings. So the focus of case studies is on the singularity of the phenomena, and then that particular phenomena is explored in depth, which actually means exploring um, exploring and collecting and analyzing data in all possible ways and all feasible ways. And the third one is that these studies mainly happen in natural settings, which actually means there is generally no manipulation of variables, and the researchers study things as they occur. And again, while we are summarizing, there are some researchers who have also referred to case studies in the quantitative research approaches. But generally, case studies, because they are studies of singularities and they are studies of that are conducted in particular bounded systems, they are generally associated with qualitative researches. And with these definitions and these preliminary examples of the case study research, I hope you might have an initial understanding of the case study research. As usual, you might have questions, and so you might come up with those questions. In some of our coming presentation, I would like to discuss. I would share with you some of some of the types of case study researches, and I hope that will further explain the nature of this particular and this very interesting research type. Thank you very much for your time.